So I want to use today's gospel about Martha and Mary to begin a multi-week homily series about prayer. You know, this whole idea of how am I to pray, it comes up. Every summer we have what's called Mass and Mochas. That's a high school youth event. So every Thursday during summer, after the morning Mass, I go down with high school kids who want to show up and the youth minister, and we go down to Mercedale Park. First we stop by, get some coffee or whatever drink you want, and then we just have a conversation. They get to choose the topics. You know, first week was, again, it's always kind of interesting. Roe v. Wade, Dobbs, fallout, that kind of thing. Last week we had transgender. What does the church say about the transgender issues? But this week we had just this question: how am I to pray? How do I pray? It's just one of those questions that we know is important. We're told that, we sense it, and yet we don't often know what to do. So again, I would like to dedicate some time about preaching on this topic. You know, I'm always talking about these 20 minutes a day of prayer. That's just 20 minutes, silent, solitary time alone with God. And so I want to go into the next two talks. I want to talk about, again, practices within those 20 minutes. What do I do? But today, kind of some scaffolding and some support things for that. And I want to begin with mom and dad, my mom and dad. When I think about prayer, I think about my parents. I was blessed with my parents. Never doubted their love for me. Wonderful mom and dad. But they were very different in how they showed their love, mom and dad, for us. For instance, you can take an example of football. Football and love, mom and dad. How do these fit together? So, two younger brothers and I, we all played football at the old Ringdahl Junior High. Then that was the building that became Eastside Catholic over in Newport Hills. So I was junior high there, and then Newport High School. So from late 70s through the early 80s, we all played for Ringdahl Junior High. And my dad was not a overly demonstrative man emotionally. He tended to show his love by actions more than through words. And one way he did this for us boys was he would show up. He came to the games. I can't remember even junior high games where dad was not there. And remember, these games were played after school. It's about 3:30 in the afternoon. And many had to leave work early, ride the bus. He commuted, ride the bus back to Seattle. But he was always there on the sidelines, dressed usually in a jacket and tie, holding a briefcase, watching my football games. And he would walk up and down. And again, he wasn't a yeller or a cheerer or something like that, but he would walk up and down the sidelines following the line of scrimmage. There were no stands in the junior highs. You just walk there on the sidelines, which allowed us, though, to then later at dinner table discuss in excruciating, though for me exciting, details of how I'd done. So that was what we did. My mom's attitude to football was very different. Wasn't a big fan, isn't. She preferred we would not play football, frankly. She thought it was simply a rather foolish way to get hurt. And she didn't come to the junior high games. That wasn't for her. But once we got to high school, yes, she would accompany Dad on Friday nights, sit in the stands. But my dad followed the game. My mom didn't. She didn't follow the football. At each play, she would follow number 95. So that's what she did the whole day. My brothers and I, we all played defensive end. We all wore number 95. From 1977 to 1983, there was a Nagel 95 on the Newport football team. And so Mom's was there. She would watch every play to see if number 95 got up after each play. And if he did, it was a good play for Mom. Didn't matter if I made a tackle or blew it or dropped the ball. It doesn't matter. He got up. Had to be a win. It's good. She once threatened, actually more than once threatened, kind of a joke in our family, that if I didn't get up, she would embarrass me by rushing onto the field screaming, my baby, what have you done to my baby?" And I think she was mostly joking, but that was kind of the attitude there. That's how she showed her love of my football career. Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me by myself to do the serving? So this is one of those stories in the Gospels that can irritate some people. Why shouldn't Martha get some help? It looks like Mary's kind of loafing. Somebody has to take care of the needs of the world and of the day. We can listen to Jesus after dinner. So again, but Jesus doesn't see Martha and Mary as these either or. What he's looking at, yeah, we have to do the work of our vocation in the world. That's true. And I'll get back to that. But Jesus can be there too. But the first priority is to focus on Jesus. And that's clearly what Mary's doing, and he wants to reinforce that. Be attentive to me. Not because he's some sort of needy person he wants to be served, but simply watch me. Pay attention. This is the one thing necessary in your life. So communion with Jesus is the purpose of when I communion, that means just connection. It can be sacramental, it can be through prayer, but communion, connection, encounter with Christ is the number one. It's the reason we exist. It's the purpose. And it's a matter of love. I think of my dad at those Ringdale Junior High games. Because I didn't appreciate it enough at the time, but it really he was a busy guy. It must have been difficult to arrange his schedule so he could make time for those games. I kind of took it for granted. But I'm sure in the background, it was hard. And he did enjoy football, but probably not junior high football. I mean, this isn't a high level of football. This is bad. But he went there, and when it was raining, when it was cold, it wasn't going there because he could hardly wait to see how the Ringdale Rams pulled it out. He was there to love me and my brothers. He showed up. That's what he did. He showed up. That was the main point. And I think about Dad's presence, and then the way that we make time or not for prayer. Showing up. You know, so one of the things in terms sometimes it's like it's a rainy, cold day. But if we just show up, God knows it. We sometimes think of Dad as God is his father figure, and we're the one that, but in this way, I'm switching it around. We need to show up for God. Just show up, 20 minutes. Then the other thing I want to talk about today, before we get into the next 2 weeks, what you do during the 20 minutes, or at least some suggestions. Here's another way to support the 20 minutes by another way of praying to show God our love. Again, not to replace the 20 minutes a day, but as a complement to them. And that is practicing the presence of God. That's a name of a famous Catholic spiritual book. It was written in the 1600s, or at least collected in the 1600s by, his name is Brother Lawrence of the Incarnation. He was a Carmelite lay brother. Wasn't some priest, wasn't some sort of intellectual. He was a saintly man, though. And he wrote little letters, short letters, that they were about prayer, and these were gathered together in a little book. And his whole point is, because again, he wasn't somebody who was really super sophisticated. His whole point was simply to practice the presence of God, just to remember that Jesus is there. Whatever I'm doing during the day, Jesus is there. He's there. That's practicing the presence of God. And again, it's the important thing in our day. It's what matters. We sometimes think, okay, how do I judge whether my day is a good day or a bad day? Well, we tend to think, well, a good day is when I get accomplished what somebody else or what I have determined is necessary. I complete my tasks on time, or I experience certain pleasures looking forward to or surprising for me. That's a good day. Whereas, and not that those are bad, but they're not the point of the day. We are each given another 24 hours on the earth in order that we can encounter Christ, keep him company, have communion with him, remember he's present, that we've sat at his feet. If we've done that, it's been a good day. Regardless of what kind of disaster happened at work or whether it was really a painful day, if we lived it with Christ, it's a good day. So again, now think about my mom. My mom never took her eye off number 95. And all the noise, all the violence of the play, all the band playing, all the cheering, all the excitement or lack thereof, she just kept her eyes on 95. And that's exactly the attitude involved in practicing the presence of God. That we keep our eyes, or rather our hearts, on the one we love, God, throughout the confusion, the busyness, the noise of the day. It's our goal. It's not easy. It's not necessarily happening tomorrow immediately, perfectly. But just this idea, it's so simple. God's here. Whatever I'm doing, God's beside me. It's amazing how we change our lives, our words, our thoughts, our actions, if we actually do remember Jesus is right here. So he's here with me. We try it, we'll forget about it often. We just go hours or days without remembering, and then, oh yeah, Jesus, you're here. Without guilt or without fuss, we can just say, oh yeah, let's start again. Jesus, I'm checking in. Checking in. I'm showing up. And he appreciates the effort. It opens us to his love. He's always there, but when we remember that, it just opens us up for his love. I'll come back to this idea of presence in a future homily. So, I didn't know it at the time. Never occurred to me, but my parents, each in their own personal way, taught me how to love indirectly by showing me, they taught me how to pray, showing me how to love. By showing up and by keeping my eye on the one I love, no matter what happens. Just the practicing the presence and persevering. Those are the two keys. Persevere in my prayer and practice the presence of God. That's a great support for when we actually set aside time specifically to encounter Christ. So again, before we can really serve him, we have to take time in our lives to be present to him. So when we talk about Martha and Mary, before we're good servants of God, Martha, we have to be good, attentive listeners to God, Mary. They're not either or. They support each other in the necessary. So there's nothing more important in life than this, remember. And so we'll talk about it, continue to talk about it more next week.